Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. Welcome to episode 243 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the topic of assertiveness, but from a specific perspective of the words that we use and how some words and phrases can make us seem a little less confident or assertive. So we might think about toning some of those down and just trying to watch our words a little bit more closely. I know it's something that I've struggled with in the past as well. So let's get into this episode right now. Now, assertiveness is important in leadership, but the very common advice that you should just be more assertive is not helpful for anyone. Thoughtful leaders often find it challenging to be assertive. Many are so used to thinking of others and making sure that everyone else's needs are met that they put their own needs on the back burner. So in this episode, I'm going to take a look at assertiveness, and in particular, I want to hone in on one common giveaway of the unassertive leader, and that is the language they use. Now we'll look at some of this language, the impact it can have, and some suggestions to see if you can start to be more assertive. Firstly, why is it important to be more assertive in leadership? Now, I define assertiveness as standing up for what you want in a respectful way. So instead of giving in or stepping back, you prioritize your needs and the needs of your team and pursue them. But the key here is the part that says in a respectful way. So we've all seen people who are aggressive rather than assertive. They try to steamroll other people, putting their own needs above all else and fighting hard to fulfill them. Now, I see assertiveness as lying on a spectrum. As you can see in the graphic, and I'll put it on the show notes page, on one side you've got passive, and on the other side you've got aggressive, and in the middle you've got the assertive zone. Now, aggressive behaviour often involves direct words and threatening body language, such as slamming fists onto tables or finger pointing. Passive behaviour, on the other hand, has its own challenges. It involves being submissive, staying quiet, not taking action, and letting other people have their way. Now, obviously, both of these approaches have their downsides, so the sweet spot in my mind is in the middle, in the assertive zone. To be more assertive, we need to move closer to that middle, and in this episode, I'm going to concentrate on moving from passive to assertive because I believe this is where most thoughtful leaders experience the challenge. Now, when I'm working with coaching clients, sometimes we'll talk about moving a few points up the assertiveness ladder. Now, if you imagine the ladder or spectrum as stretching from 0 to 10, we're aiming to be somewhere in the middle. Let's say a 5 to a 7. Now, I'm going to be provocative here and say that assertiveness matters because people are out to get you. We need to be more assertive because otherwise we may be taken advantage of, we may fail to achieve our objectives or have our needs met. Now, leaders are often judged on results. To get results, we need to stand up for what we need to get those results. It's also common to be working in an organisation with many people, all with different priorities. We like to believe that everyone is in it for the same reason, but the reality is that people want to satisfy their own needs and achieve their own career goals. Now, what I'm not saying is that everyone is out to get you in a malicious way, but if you're known as a person who helps everyone out and never says no, then you're likely to be lumped with a lot of extra work while everyone else gets to focus on what they really want. Now, being a passive leader sets a precedent that you will consistently back down. Being an assertive leader sets the precedent that people may need to negotiate with you to get what they want, rather than expect it to be handed to them on a silver platter. Now, you also need to be more assertive to resist the pressure and dominance of the alpha career ladder climbers who are happy to fight their way to the top. Now, in my view, we need more thoughtful leaders at the top. Assertiveness will help you to get there, stay there, and to do a great job at the same time. And a related episode I'd recommend you check out is episode 219, 4 Steps to Grow Your Leadership Confidence. If you haven't heard that one already, check that one out. It'll be in the show notes page, thoughtfulleader.com/243. Now, one symptom I see for a potential lack of assertiveness is what I call diminishing or softening language. Now, by diminishing, I mean that a person lacking assertiveness may use language that diminishes their status, compared to the other person they are communicating with. Softening language is often used to reduce the perceived threat of an idea or a statement. Now, both of these types of language can be useful in the right circumstances. The trouble occurs when this type of language becomes a habit, even when speaking about things that are important to you. So let's look at a few examples. The first one I see quite commonly is adding the word just, J-U-S-T. Sometimes people will say or write in an email things like, "I'm just checking," or "I'd just like to ask," or "just wondering." Now, this might seem like a harmless little word, but I find it can make an impact. When we add just, we are qualifying our statement to reduce its significance. When we say just, we are making it seem like a small or trivial request. But actually, it might be important to us. We add just to make the other person feel better about our little request, but this might mean they misinterpret how important it is to us. And therefore, they may not regard it as something they need to worry about or prioritize. Now, I find myself doing this from time to time in emails, and when I notice it, I remove it and restructure the sentence so I'm not reducing the perceived importance of my request. Another common example I see is people saying, "I'm thinking about doing something." Now, are you really just thinking about doing something, or have you already decided it is something you would like to do, but are concerned that it might annoy the other person? Sometimes we do this to try to soften the impact of our statement when really we know what we'd like to do already. So to be more assertive in this case, could you simply say, "I'd like to do something, what do you think?" Being assertive doesn't mean you never ask for input, but don't pretend that you don't have your own opinion on the topic. Now, the third example I see is maybe. Maybe is a big softening word, and when we say we will do this, maybe, or maybe try this, or maybe that would be a good idea, we're being tentative. Instead, could you simply leave the maybe out? I think it would be a good idea to try this approach, for example, because it's okay to own your ideas and your opinions. And a related post I'd recommend you check out is passive leadership destroying your team's motivation? You can check that out on the show notes page. Another example I see is using more words than are required. So you might catch yourself using words like, or something like that, or maybe, or that sort of thing, or maybe you say, or whatever. Now, sometimes I think we do this because we feel uncomfortable putting our point across, so we soften it with qualifying language, which reduces the strength of our message. Now, to reduce this possibility, try using as few words as possible to convey your message. Keep it concise. The last example I see here is asking for permission. So sometimes we do need to ask for permission, but surely not all the time. So we will say things like, "Would it be okay if?" Now, once again, asking for permission makes the other person feel like they can take control of your direction, that they can potentially stop what you're doing, or that they deserve to have a say in it. So you could instead try something like, "I'd like to do something, what do you think?" Or, "I'm planning to do something, it'd be great to get your feedback." So these phrasing examples seem quite small, but they can make a big difference to how you are perceived. And if others believe they deserve to be asked for permission, that's how they'll work with you. If people believe that you don't really feel strongly about your idea, that's how they'll treat the idea. Making a change won't happen overnight because this tendency may have developed over a long time, and it will take some time to unwind it. But here are some ideas to see if you can get started on that journey of maybe tweaking your language a little bit. Now, the first thing I'd recommend is simply monitoring your language. So to begin with, start to pay attention to the words you use in personal conversation and via electronic methods. Email is a good starting point because you can look at your sent emails, while it can be hard to monitor your language when you're actually in the moment. Recordings of online meetings, though, could also be a good source of information. Now, in the beginning, just take note of the language, see what you say and when you say it. Write down some examples, get some feedback from a trusted colleague, ask them if they can take note of your language too, and then over time you can look to start tweaking your phrasing to reduce this softening speak. The second thing I'd recommend is practicing the new language. And the new language might feel difficult to start with, especially if you've built up a habit of softening your phrasing. Now, if you know you have an important meeting or conversation you need to have, prepare what you want to say, being careful to leave out the diminishing words. Say it out loud in front of a mirror. And if you're going for a job interview where you want to earn at least 120k, don't say around 120k, either say 120k plus, or better yet, why not say at least 130k? Rehearse in front of the mirror and it will become easier to say in that moment because you've done it already. The third thing I'd recommend is to set some targets. So if you know you have a compulsive habit of adding maybe to your sentences, set yourself a target. This week, I'm going to leave out the maybe 3 times. I'm going to send emails without saying just 5 times. Start small, unravel an old habit, and you'll gradually be able to start a new one. So tweaking your assertive language can be beneficial to improve your reputation in the workplace, but it also plays a part in how you feel about yourself. If you feel compelled to ask for permission all the time, it might be because you consider yourself to be beneath or inferior to the people around you in some way. Now start to change your language and you start to change the perceptions of others, and then you might even start to change the perception you have of yourself. And I'd love to hear what you think about this topic. Do you notice any other phrases that may indicate a lack of assertiveness, or do you agree with this? Do you think these softening words are fine? I'd love to get your thoughts on this one. Go to the show notes page, thoughtfulleader.com/243, and leave your comments for me and all the other thoughtful leaders out there. And while you're at it, if you like this episode or the podcast in general, I'd love it if you could leave a positive review on your app of choice. It helps me get the word out and grow the audience of thoughtful leaders. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Keep up the thoughtful leadership, and I'll be back next week.